Yes, Shubham. So tell me the pillars of the object-oriented programming language. So there are the four pillars of the object-oriented programming language. So tell me the four pillars of the object-oriented programming language.
Okay, sir. There are four pillars of object-oriented programming language, such as abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction.
Yes. Yes. Just explain me one by one. Means about abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism.
Okay, so abstraction means hiding internal implementation and just highlight the set of services or set of functionality to the end user what we are referring. And in Java, abstraction are achieved by with the help of the abstract classes and interfaces.
Correct.
Then,
Yes.
inheritance means creating a new class from the existing class. So it is an also called as a easy relationship. So
Ye- Yes.
in Java,
Correct.
total Java API is built on the with the help of the inheritance concept.
Mm-hmm.
Then polymorphism. So polymorphism means one entity existing multiple forms. So it is known
Yes.
as the polymorphism, and polymorphism is achieved by in Java with the help of the method overriding and method overloading. Then encapsulation. So encapsulation means the process of wrapping a data and corresponding class method into a single unit is nothing but an encapsulation. And encapsulation are achieved by Java with the help of the combination of abstraction and data hiding.
Yes. Correct. So great. Now, yes. So you told that abstraction is achieved by using abstract class and interface.
Yes.
Yes, tell me the difference between abstract class and interface.
Okay. So abstract class. So abstract class means if you have just partially implemented, then we should go with an abstract class. And just we
Mhm.
have just a requirement specification and we don't know about the implementation, then we should go with an interfaces.
Yes,
So
correct.
abstract class can contain a constructor, but interface does not contain any constructor.
Mm-hmm.
Then in abstract class we can take abstract method as well as non-abstract method, but in interface by default all the methods are abstract. Then in
Yes,
abstract class we can take instance as well as static variables, but in interface we can take only on static variable because all the variables inside the interface by default publish static and final.
correct.
So in abstract class there is having a main method, but interface cannot be have a main method. Then in abstract class we can take final method, but interface we cannot be take a final method. Then abstract class
Mhm.
we can take a static block as well as the instance block, but we cannot take in interface static block and final block. Sorry, instance block.
Okay, great, great. So you told that abstract class, one of the difference that is abstract class can have constructor, but the interface doesn't have constructor.
Yes.
So why abstract class have constructor but not interface?
So the we know that key main purpose of constructor is to perform the initialization of an object, and
Mm-hmm.
we know that key in abstract class having some instance variable. So to perform those instance variables, the constructor is required in abstract class. But in the case of the interface, there is no having some instance variables. So by default, all the variables having a statics means public statics and final. So there is no having any instance variable. So a constructor cannot be required inside the final block.
Yeah, okay, correct. So can we create an object of interface?
No, we cannot be create an object of an interface.
And can we create an object of abstract class?
No, we cannot be create also object of an abstract class.
Okay, okay, great. So now next that is a polymorphism, one of the pillar of the object-oriented programming language. It's
Yes.
polymorphism. So polymorphism is achieved by using method overloading and method overriding.
Yes.
So tell me the difference between method overloading and method overriding.
Okay. So method overriding means whenever we can extend one class in another class, then so what are the methods of an parent class are by default available to the child class. But
Mhm.
if child class is not satisfied with an parent class method implementation, then child class method is an allowed to redefine that implementation in this class is known as a method overriding.
Mhm.
Then method overloading means method name having method name is same but they having a different argument is known as a method overloading.
Yeah, correct.
Then method overriding, JVM is then responsible to perform the method call or to resolve the method call based on the runtime object. Whereas in method overloading, compiler is then responsible to perform the or to resolve the method call based on the reference type. Then
Yes.
in method overriding, we can take coherent return type, but yes, we can take a coherent return type, but such type, but there is no restriction in a method overriding. We can take or not take. There is no not mandatory inside a method overloading. Then in method overriding, we can override the private, static, as well as we cannot override private, static, and final method. But in overloading, we can override the final, static, and private method. Then
Yes.
in method overriding, we cannot be reduce the scope of access modifier. In overloading, there is no restriction we can reduce or not reduce. There is no impact on the method overloading concept.
Yes, correct, correct. Okay, great. So now we will move to the next point about the constructor. So yeah, suppose in my program I am not writing any constructor. So at that time the compiler will generate the one default constructor.
Yes.
Okay. But yes. So here, what is mean by constructor?
Constructor means it is a one type of method.
Mm-hmm.
It is exactly same as a class name and it does not contain any return type. So
Mm-hmm.
it is known as the constructor.
Okay. So for constructor, can we overload constructor?
Yes, we can overload the constructor.
And for overriding means can we override the constructor?
No, overriding concept is not applicable for the constructor.
Okay, correct. So yes. Now we will move to the next point. So what is difference between data hiding and abstraction?
Okay, so data hiding means hiding internal data cannot be go outside or outside person cannot be access our internal data directly is nothing but the data hiding.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the abstraction means hiding internal implementation and just highlight the set of services to the user what we are offering.
Mm-hmm.
Then data hiding is achieved by Java with the help of the private access modifier. Then
Mm-hmm.
abstraction is an achieved with the help of the abstract class and interfaces. Then data hiding in lookouts, so internal lookouts, where the abstraction are focused on the external lookouts. Then in data hiding, solve issue at the implementation level, whereas the in abstraction solve issue at the design level.
Okay, correct. So now, method, sorry, overloading, there is concept of overloading.
Mhm.
So overloading is applicable for which part? Means it is applicable for the normal method, constructor, main method, and variable. So means which of the following part? So overloading concept is applicable. For normal method, overloading concept is applicable or not?
Yes, for normal method, overloading concept is applicable.
And for main method,
Yes, we can should do that.
suppose I have overloaded the main method, then at runtime, which main method get called by JVM?
Firstly, we can overload the main method, but JMA always he call the string as the argument, call that finally, and remaining method we have to call the explicitly.
Yeah, yes, correct, correct, great. Okay. Yes. Now we will to move next question. So, what is difference between string and string buffer?
Okay, so string is an immutable, so whereas the string buffer is a mutable.
Mm-hmm.
Then in string, dot equals method is override for content comparator, but in string buffer, dot equals method cannot be override for content comparator.
Mm-hmm.
String having a string constant pull mechanism, but string buffer does not have a string constant pull mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. So you tell that string is immutable. So what is mean by immutable?
So immutable means once we can create an object that we cannot be perform any changes into that existing object. If we are
Mhm.
trying to perform any changes in existing object, then new object will be created with given content. Then if any changes is not occurs in existing object, then previous object or existing object is reused. So this non-changeable behavior is known as a immutability.
Okay. So can we define our class as an immutable class?
Yes, we can do that. Our class is immutable class.
So how to define our own class as immutable?
There are the several methods such like as to define a class as a final, because no one can extend class in or no one can create its child class.
Mm-hmm.
Then define all the field as a private, because it cannot be accessed to the outside class directly.
Mm-hmm.
Then provide only getter, don't provide the setter method.
Mm-hmm.
And to provide the final access modifier to all the mutable fields, because only once we can initialize that variables.
Okay. Okay. Correct. Okay. Great. So next question, how many ways we can restrict to the user from object creation?
There are multiple ways to can restrict object creation to the user. For
Mm-hmm.
example, to declare class as abstracts, or to make a interface. Another is to provide all the constructor as a private.
Okay, correct, correct. So, and how to restrict the user to create a child class?
Yes, we can do that to provide class as a final, and to provide all the constructor as a private. So we can restrict the child class of an given class.
Okay, okay, great. So in Java, so which class act as a root in Java class hierarchy?
In Java, object classes act as a root class in Java.
Okay, okay, correct. Now, now we will move to the next concept. So what is difference between final, there is one modifier final and there is a concept immutability. So what is difference between final and immutability?
Okay, so final is an access modifier, and which is applicable only for the variable, class, and methods, and not applicable for the objects. And
Correct.
immutability is an concept which is applicable only for the objects, not for the variables, methods, and classes.
Okay. So correct. So now next question. So how many wrapper classes are there?
In Java, there are totally 8 wrapper classes are available in Java.
Okay. Okay. And what is default value for the Boolean wrapper class?
False is a default value for the Boolean wrapper class.
Okay, correct. Now we will move to the next part, that is the exception. So what is exception?
Exception means unwanted or unexpected event occurs and that disturb the normal flow of execution is nothing but an exception.
Okay, and what is difference between exception and error?
Okay, so exceptions are occur due to pure logic by programmer, whereas the error are occur due to the system lack of the system resources.
Correct.
Then exception is an either checked or unchecked, but error is an always unchecked.
Mm-hmm.
Then exception is unrecoverable, but errors cannot be recoverable.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is difference between check exception and uncheck exception?
Okay, so checked exception means those exception which is checked by compiler, whether it is programmer handle or not, for smooth execution at runtime, is known as a checked exception. Whereas unchecked exception means those exception which is not checked by compiler, whether it is programmer handle or not, then such type of exception is known as unchecked exception. Then
Okay.
checked exception are divided into partially checked exception and fully checked exception.
Mm-hmm.
And unchecked exception, for example, unchecked runtime in child classes and error in child classes are came into the unchecked exception.
Okay. Okay. Great. So now we'll move to the next question. Uh, what is the you means here? What is difference between throw and throws keyword?
Okay, so throw keyword can be used to hand over the explicitly created exception object to the JVM,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the throws keyword can be used to delegate the exception handling responsibility to the caller. Caller means maybe either a JVM or method.
Okay.
Then throws are used inside the method, whereas the throws keyword can be used with the method signature. Then throws can throw can throw only at a time only one exception can throw by throws keyword, throw
Mm-hmm.
keyword, whereas the throws keyword can throws multiple exception at a time.
Okay. Great. Great. So now, what is difference between final and finally?
So final and finally, final is an access modifier which is applicable for the variable, class, and method, whereas the finally is an keyword which is applicable only for the block. So when we can declare as a class as a final, then we cannot be its override. When we can declare a method as a final, then we cannot be its also override. And when we can declare as a variable as a final, then we cannot be perform any initialization. And finally block is then always associated with an try-catch, and it is used to perform the cleanup activity, hot cleanup activity, which are associated with an try block.
Okay. Okay. Correct. So in object class, we have means total 11 method. So out of that, like wait, notify, and notify all method are present in the object class. But those methods are generally used in the multi-threading. But those methods are not present in the thread class. So why wait, notify, and notify all method are present in the object class but not in thread class?
Okay, so for every Java object having only one lock or monitor,
Mm-hmm.
and these objects, this method, so wait, notify, and notify method, these are used within this monitor or locks. So that's why they are the part of the object, not a part of the thread. And these methods, such as a wait, notify, and notify methods, are work on the lock. And we know that locks are always associated with an object, so that's why they are method in the object class, not a thread class.
Okay, correct. So now next question, what is difference between runnable and callable?
Okay, so callable interface are present in java.util.concurrent package, whereas the runnable interface are present in java.long package. Then callable interface have a call method, whereas the runnable interface have a run method. Then callable interface call method can return some value, but runnable interface run method cannot be return any value. Then callable interface call method can throw some checked exception, but runnable interface run method cannot be throws any exception, checked exception.
Okay, correct, correct. Now, so now we will move to the collection part. So as a collection, so there are the some key interfaces. So just tell me how many interfaces are considered as a key interfaces and tell the name of these key interfaces.
Okay, in collection there are 9 key interfaces are available, such as collection, list, set, sorted set, navigable set, map, sorted map, navigable map, and queue.
Okay, correct, correct. So tell me the difference between collection and array.
Okay, array is in a fixed size, whereas the collection is an algorithm in nature. Then array can store only homogeneous data element, whereas collection can store homogeneous as well as heterogeneous data element. Then with respect to performance, array is recommended to use, but with respect to performance, collection is not recommended to use. Then with respect to memory performance, array is not recommended to use, but with respect to memory performance, collection is recommended to use. Then array does not support the ready-made method, but the collection can support the ready-made method.
Okay, okay, great. Now next difference between list and set.
Okay, so in list insertion order is preserved, but in set insertion order is not preserved. Then in list duplicates are allowed, but in set duplicates not allowed. But in list there is no having any the by default sorting techniques, but it set having by default some sorting techniques. By using preset we can sort the elements.
Okay, okay. Now next difference, array list and linked list.
Okay, so underlying data structure of an array list is an growable array or resizable array. Whereas the underlying data structure of an linked list is an doubly linked list. Then in arrays and base choice of your frequently operation is an retrieval operation, but whereas linked list is an base choice of your operation is an insertion or deletion at middle. Then in array elements are inserted according to some continuous memory location. But in linked list elements cannot be inserted according to some continuous memory location. In array list having some capacity concept, but in linked list does not have any capacity concept.
Okay, great, great. Now the next difference between comparable and comparator.
Okay, so comparable are present in java.lang package, whereas the comparator present in java.util package. Then comparable is meant for default natural sorting order, but comparator is meant for the customizer sorting order. Then when we are depending upon the default natural order, then object must be homogeneous and comparable. And then when we are depending upon customizer sorting order, then there is no need to object having comparable or homogeneous. Then comparable having one method compared to method with taking one input parameter as object, whereas the comparator have one method such as a compare method, it takes two input variables such as object 1 and object 2.
Okay, okay, great. So now next difference between hash set and linked hash set.
Okay, so hash set underlying data structure in hash set is an hash table. Whereas the in linked hash set underlying data structure is a combination of hash table and linked list. Then in hash set it is a parent class, whereas the linked hash set is a child class. Then hash set introduced in JDK 1.2 version, whereas the linked hash set is introduced in JDK 1.4 version. Then insertion order is not preserved in hash set, but insertion order is preserved in linked hash set.
Okay, great, great. Now next difference between hash map and hash table.
Okay, so every method in hash table are synchronized, but whereas every method in hash map is not synchronized. Then in hash table, at the time only one thread is allowed to operate on hash table object, whereas in hash map there are multiple threads allowed to operate on hash map object. Then in hash table relative performance is low, whereas in hash map relative performance is high. Then hash table is not by default as a thread set, but thread set, and hash map is not a thread set. Then in hash map null insertion is not allowed, but in hash map null insertion is allowed.
Okay, okay, great. Yes, so now last difference, there is a difference between fail fast and fail safe.
Okay, so fail fast and fail safe. Fail fast and throw an exception such as concurrent modification exception when we are trying to perform any modification. Then fail safe does not throw any exception. Then in fail fast, duplicate operation creation not allowed at the time of iterating process. But in fail safe, duplication object creation is allowed at the time of iterating process. Then fail fast is faster than fail safe, but fail safe is lower than the fail fast.
Okay.
Then modification is not allowed in fail fast at the time of iterating process, but modification is allowed in fail safe at the time of iterating process.
Okay. Okay. Now, yes, core Java has done. Yes. So great preparation. Okay. No doubt. Now we'll move to the Spring concept.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So from the Spring, the first question is, so tell me what is a Spring?
So Spring is a open source, lightweight, loosely coupled, non-invasive, dependency-based injection component and module Java framework are introduced by Scott Johnson in 2003.
Okay. So great. So now, so next question. So here, there are the concept in Spring. So loosely coupling. So what is mean by loose couple and what is mean by tightly couple?
Okay, so coupling means degree of dependency between components.
Mm-hmm.
So if degree is less, it's known as a loosely coupling. For example, if we are make a changes in one class, then there is no required changes in another class. Then that two classes are the loosely coupled.
Yes, correct.
And tightly coupling means if degree of dependency between more, then it's known as tightly coupling. Means if we are making changes in one class, then there is required to changes in another class. So these two classes are tightly coupled with each other.
Okay, correct. Now, so in Spring, how many containers are available?
There are three containers are available in Spring.
Mm-hmm.
So first core container, advanced container, and web container.
Okay. What is the name of core container?
XML bin factory. Bin factory is the name of the core container.
Okay, and its implementation name is a?
XML bin factory.
Okay, and name of the advanced container is?
Application context is the name of the advanced container.
And name of the web container?
Web application context.
Yes, correct. So now we'll move to the next question. So what is mean by IOC and what is mean by dependency injection?
So IOC stands for inversion of controlling.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it is an design principle and which helps to control the inversion of the object creation.
Yes,
and
correct.
so instead of the programmer controlling the flow of the program, external source like framework, service and other component take control of it. It's known as the IOC. Whereas the dependency injection is the main aspect in our Spring framework. So it is a generally design pattern and that implements the IOC principle.
Okay, so correct. So in Spring, how many dependency injections are there?
There are two dependency injections available in Spring. Setter dependency injection and constructor dependency injection.
Okay. So tell me the difference between setter dependency and constructor dependency.
Okay, so in setter dependency injection, setter methods are used to inject the value, whereas the constructor dependency injection, constructors are used to inject the value.
Yes.
Then setter dependency injection is more reliable than constructor dependency injection, whereas the constructor dependency injection is less more reliable than setter dependency injection.
Okay.
Then setter dependency injection override the constructor dependency injection, but constructor dependency injection cannot be override the setter dependency injection. Then setter dependency injection is partially dependency injection, but the constructor dependency injection is not partially dependency injection.
Okay. Okay. Now, okay, correct. So, so there are the two containers. One is a core container and one is advanced container. So tell me the difference between the core container and the advanced container.
So name of the core container is bin factory. Where the name of the advanced container is an application context. So implementation of class scope and core container is an XML bin factory. Whereas the implementation class of an advanced container is an class path XML application contents, and many more.
Mm-hmm.
Then core container is an lazy loading, whereas the advanced container is an eager loading.
Okay.
Then with the help of the core container, we can load only one configuration file, but with the help of the advanced container, we can load the multiple Spring application file at a time.
Correct.
Then core container does not support the annotation, but advanced container support the annotations.
Okay, correct. So now, okay, now we will move to the next question. In Spring, how many scope are available?
Up to 5 there are 5 scopes. Up to 4 there are 5 scopes are available, such as singleton, prototype, request, session, and global session. But global session are deprecated in Spring 5.
Okay. And which scope is the default scope in Spring?
Singleton is an default scope in Spring.
Okay. Okay. Now we will move to the next question. So what is mean by auto wiring?
Auto wiring means it is an automatic dependency injection. So it means require being get automatically created by any desired class.
Okay. And how we achieve auto wiring?
Auto wire can achieve by using the @auto wire annotation and auto wire attribute.
Okay. And in auto wiring, what is the role of the @qualifier annotation?
It is avoid the ambiguity between the auto wiring.
Okay. And in auto wiring, what is the limitation for the auto wiring?
Auto wiring is an applicable only for the security type dependency injection. It cannot be applied for, we cannot be inject the primitive type of dependency injection.
Okay, great. So in Spring, how many stereotype annotations are available?
There are 4 stereotypes of available in Spring, such as @component, @service, @repository, and @service controller, @service, @controller.
Okay, okay, great. Yes. Now, so we will move to the next. Just a minute. So in Spring, what is the name? Now we will move to the Spring MVC. So just tell me the Spring MVC control flow.
Okay, so when a client are requested, then dispatcher servlet is in our front controller. Then request came to the dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet can send this request to the handler mapping to know the appropriate controller for the given request. Then handler mapping accept that request and find the appropriate controller and send a response back to the dispatcher servlet. Then again dispatcher servlet sends that request to the appropriate controller. Then appropriate controller receive that request and perform the process and create a model and view object and send that object back to the dispatcher servlet. Then again dispatcher servlet send that request to the view resolver to know the resolver path. And view resolver take that response and generate a view resolver path URI and send back to the dispatcher servlet. And finally dispatcher servlet bind that data, form data and send that to the response to the client.
Okay, okay, great. So in Spring MVC we use some annotation like @path variable, request mapping, so
Yes.
controller. So here, what is the use of @request mapping annotation?
Okay, generally @request mapping annotation can be used to map the HTTP incoming request.
Okay, correct, correct. And what is the use of @path variable annotation?
@path annotation can be used to extract the value from the URI path.
And what is the purpose of the @query param annotation?
Okay, @query param annotation can be used to extract the value from the query string or the form parameter.
Okay. And what is the use of the model attribute annotation?
@model attribute can be used to map the form data to the POJO class object.
Okay, great, great. Okay. In your project, which view resolver you have used?
I am using an internal resource view resolve in my project.
Okay. And in Spring project, how you handle the exception?
By using the exception handler annotation.
Okay. Okay. Now, yes, great. Now we'll move to the next part, to the Spring Boot and REST API.
Okay.
Yes. So just first we will try to complete the REST API. So to design a REST controller, so generally which annotation are used?
So to design it, I generally use @REST controller, @response body, @get mapping, @put mapping, @post mapping, @delete mapping, and many
Okay,
more.
great. Yes, so here there is an annotation at the rate controller, and there is another annotation at the rate REST controller. So what is the basic difference between the at the rate controller and REST controller?
Okay, so @controller can be used to mark class as a controller class.
Mm-hmm.
Then @REST controller can be used to RESTful web services.
Mm-hmm.
Then @controller is an old controller, but @REST controller is a new controller which is introduced in Spring 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we can mark as a @controller, then what are the method inside that class that return the view instead of the object?
Okay.
Whereas when we can apply @REST controller to the class, then what are the method inside present that class? It can return the domain object instead of the view.
Okay, correct. Yes. So yes. Now we will move to the next code. So here, so there is already Spring framework is there. So and they in the Spring they have added one module, that is Spring Boot. So what are the difference between means what are the advantages of the Spring Boot over the Spring?
Okay, so in Spring Boot, everything is an auto configuration. So there is no need to explicitly to auto configure that something.
Mm-hmm.
Then with the help of the Spring, it can provide the rapid application development feature.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can also create the annotation based Spring application.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can also create the standalone Spring application by using the starter.jar file.
Mm-hmm.
Then in Spring Boot, everything is an embedded, so embedded server, just like as JT, then Tomcat or Undertow. So there is no need to explicitly deploy the OR file in our project.
Okay. Okay. Now, how to change the port in a Spring Boot? Suppose I want to change my server port. So, can we change the server port?
Yes, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do that. We have to add one line in application.properties file, such as a Spring server.port and is equal to port value.
Okay. Correct. Okay. Do you know about the dev tool in Spring Boot?
Yes, I know dev tool in Spring Boot.
So yes, tell me what is the use of dev tool in Spring Boot?
So yes, then basically it is a tool for the developer.
Mm-hmm.
So generally in our project or in our application, we can modify any source code. Mm-hmm. Then we have to explicitly restart or redeploy that application once again or repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time of the development process, it is a very time-consuming process.
Mm-hmm.
So due to this dev tools, it can help to us. It can provide it can reduce the complexity of an application or reduce the complexity of the developer. So due to this dev tools, it can allow to the developer to whenever we can perform any changes in our application, there is no need to redeploy or restart the server every time. So this is the biggest feature of the Spring Boot dev tool in Java.
Okay, great. Okay. Now we'll move to the REST part. So tell me the difference between get method and post method.
Okay, so get method. So get method it is an generally default method.
Mm-hmm.
whereas the post method is not a default method.
Mm-hmm.
With the help of the get request, we can send only limited amount of data because the data can be sent in a header.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the in post data, we can send large amount of data because the data can be sent into the body. The
Yes.
get request cannot be a secure because your data can be exposed in URL bar. But post
Mm-hmm.
method is unsecure because URL cannot be exposed in data cannot be exposed in URL bar. But then with the help of the get, we can send only text formatted data. But with the help of the post method, we can send any type of data. Get method is an bookmark, but post method is not a bookmark.
Mm-hmm.
Then get method is an idempotent, whereas post method is not idempotent.
Okay, okay, great. Now, yes, so here in Spring Boot there is a one concept, profile concept. So what is the use of that profile concept in Spring Boot?
Okay, so profile means so for in an application they are having some different environments such like as development, testing, staging, and production, and many more development are available in our application. And for this environment having a different type of configuration.
Mm-hmm.
So for this purpose, Spring Boot can provide one feature is known as the profile feature. So to achieve the profile feature, we have to create explicitly application.properties file. We have to create explicitly file for the appropriate or individual environment. For such like as for a development environment, we have to create some dev.properties. Some like for production environment, we have to create some application.pro.property, something like that. And to activate that profile, we have to add one line in application.property. It is a spring.profile.activate, and we have to specify that profile name, profile file name.
Okay, correct, correct. Okay, now yes, correct. So on Spring Boot, your preparation is good one. Now we'll move to the some database, basic database queries. Okay. So tell me the difference between delete and truncate.
Okay, so delete is in an DML command, so data manipulation language, and truncate is an DDL command, data definition language command. Then delete can use where clause for delete the data, but truncate cannot be used the where clause to do delete the data. Then delete can use the trigger, but truncate cannot be used the trigger. Then in a delete by using the delete, we can delete row by row data in a table, but with the help of the truncate, we can delete data in a single shot.
Okay.
Then in deleted data is rollback, but in truncate deleted data cannot be rollback.
Yeah, correct. So now tell me the difference between delete and the drop.
Okay, so delete is an DML command, data manipulation language command, whereas the drop is an DDL command, data definition language command. Then delete can use where clause to delete data, but drop cannot be used the where clause to delete the data. Then with the help of delete, we can delete the data by row, but with the help of the drop, we can delete the data in a single shot.
Okay.
Then deleted data can be rolled back in delete, but deleted data can be rolled back in a drop.
Okay, okay, great. Yes, so we have done means